Welcome to the Fireside Chat for Fitness and Nutrition with Adrienne and Ken. Today we'll be talking about how to have a balanced diet and some balanced training. Ken, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I would, Adrienne. Yes, thank you for that introduction. And so I wanted to show you some movements for balance that will help with, of course, balance, with stability and core strength as well. So 3 movements I want to show you, or non-movements, however you want to say it. So the first one is, let's see if I can back that up just so that you can see everything that I'm doing. Feet. Yeah. So the first one is just going to bounce on one leg. So you're going to shift shift your body weight to the one leg. Now, before you do that, make sure that you create a slight arch in your feet. So you don't want the arch of your foot. You don't want to have a flat foot. So you want to kind of make a slight fist with your foot, and that's going to help so that you don't have that arch. That's a good way to start. So then what you do is you just lift up your leg, the other leg. Now this leg that you're standing on is straight but not locked. We don't want the tension on the bones. We want it on the muscle. So you can just go ahead and lift up with one leg and just hold. You can hold this for 30 seconds to a minute. If you get to a minute, then you can start moving around. You can start, move your leg out to the side, to the front, to the back, to the side. You can do multiple repetitions. You can lift it up, you can go out, all that stuff. You can also close your eyes, which is really hard. And then once you build up to a minute of that, then you can start going, let me show you. Then you can start doing unstable platform. So this is an Eric's pad. You stand on that and you start all over again. And it's just and again, you start with the slight arch in your foot so that you have good support in that foot. And then see how hard this is. It's more challenging than just on the floor. And then once you get that, again, once you get up to a minute, times 3 on each side, then you can move to, moving your leg back and forth and so forth. And then finally close your eyes, which I can't do, I don't think, on this. That's hard. So anyway, so there's the first one. The second one is building on what you just did with an isometric or a static pose. You can do what's called a single leg deadlift. A single leg deadlift is balancing on one leg, but moving doing a deadlift. A deadlift is a hip hinge. So it's a bilateral or 2-leg deadlift would be this, where you just lean forward at the hip. See how I'm bending forward at the hip? My back is nice and flat. I'm not bending not rounding at the back, but bending forward at the hips. So all you'll do is do it on one leg. So you'll stand like this, again, with the foot. We don't want it to be a flat foot. We want it to be a slight arch in your foot. And what you'll do is you're just with the opposite hand. So if I'm standing on my right leg, with your left hand, you're just trying to go forward, and the other leg goes out behind you. Come back up. And that is, see, I'm a little bit unsteady on that. Let me try that again. So it's going to be like this. Focus on one point on the floor. And then come back up. And that is a single leg deadlift. Now that works on stability, core strength, so that you don't round your back when you go down. Hip strength too, especially the gluteus medius, the muscles that keep your hips level as you walk. That works on that too. So that's a good stability, balance movement. And the third exercise I want to show you are planks. Everybody knows what planks are. There's different ways of doing planks, but that's good stability, and you can work it into balance if you want. In that, say for instance, you're here on the floor. I'm going to start with a push-up plank. You're going to go ahead and squeeze your glutes. And all you'll do is just lift up one leg, down, switch legs, and that works on stability, and it does work on balance, especially if you have your feet close together, and then lift up, or far apart, and then lift up. That's even harder. Far apart and then lift up. You have to work on stability and a little bit of balance as well. So those are 3 exercises I wanted to show you for stability and balance. And what do you have for us? First off, Adrienne, do you have any questions?
When would be a good time to start incorporating these? I can see maybe brushing one's teeth with the first exercise you showed us as being a great time to do that.
That's a fantastic, yeah, when you're brushing teeth, or when
Yeah.
you're cooking.
Okay.
In cooking, you can do that as well. You can actually do that. You can do it anytime. And balance work, stability work is you can do it multiple times a day. You don't have to do it just once a day or once every other day, because it's not really going through, except for the single leg deadlift. You don't want to do that every day. That's because that's a moving. That's going through an eccentric and concentric movement pattern. So you don't want to do that, every other day or so, every third day, depending on how hard you work it. And but just balance you can do every day. Core, like the plank, that's an every other day.
Oh, every other
Well,
day? Okay.
yeah. So,
I really
but
like
now
those.
you can do if it's sub. How do I phrase this? If you go to a point where you're just doing it and you feel the contraction, but you don't do it to muscular failure, you can do it more often. You can do it every day. A plank, I should say. Let's say, for instance, you're cooking and you want to do a countertop plank.
Mhm.
That's not quite as hard as, say, a floor plank or a push-up plank. So you could do that often throughout the day. That would help with stability and balance and core strength. So that's a good question. Yeah.
I was going to ask, like, why do you feel like it's so important? Because a lot of times people will focus on like, oh, I run every day, oh, I do CrossFit or whatever, and it's like nobody's really talking about balance so much, but it's
Well,
like really important, especially as we age, right?
that's exactly what I was going to say. Especially as we age, if you fall when you're older, you don't have any balance. You fall when you're older, you could break something. Not necessarily when you're younger because your bones are stronger and so forth. But let's just say that you haven't exercised for a long time, or it's been 20 or so years since you've exercised, and you don't have your balance because you don't exercise and you haven't done anything. You could fall and break a hip or break a thigh. That's no good. It takes a long time to recover from that. And so it's important to start. You can just do it all the time, and it's important to do that so that you don't fall and then you set back even further for fitness. And so the lower body, anytime you injure the lower body, kind of affects everything because you can't walk, you can't exercise, you can't really do anything. Upper body, you can train because you're not relying on that for mobility. And the lower body takes a little bit longer to heal because you're putting weight on it all the time. Upper body, you're not. You just, it heals more quickly. It can heal more quickly because you don't put any weight on it. So I got off on a tangent there, but still, you want to start it is just incorporate it often. It's never too early to start with balance, and the earlier you start, the better you'll maintain it throughout your life.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like balance exercises are really great for fitness and also prevention of injuries. Would you say that's correct?
I would say that's correct. Succinctly, yes. Yes, Adrienne. Yes, that is correct.
Well, what goes better with balancing exercises than a balanced diet, right?
Oh my gosh. Tell us, Adrienne. Tell us about a balanced diet, please.
Well, the thing is, a lot of times people ask, and as a registered dietitian nutritionist, they're like, oh, well, what is a balanced diet actually? And it's a really great question because it needs to be personalized, but essentially it's one that's for maintaining your personal good health. It's very crucial because it provides the right amount and right amounts and combinations of nutrients, vitamins, minerals that your body really needs to function properly. And so we're going to talk a little bit about different types of foods that are appropriate, like in appropriate amounts. So we don't want to eat too much because then we're getting excess calories that our body doesn't need. But we need to meet the body's needs for nutrients and energy, which will also help fuel our workouts. So it's all very nice.
Sure.
Symbiotic relationship. So some key components of a balanced diet: vegetables. I know it's not everybody's favorite to hear. Everybody knows they should be eating more vegetables, but they're not doing it, right?
They're not doing it.
So we always say like fill half of your plate with vegetables or fruits at each meal. If you can, try to make them like greens a lot of times because those are some of the most underutilized and yet most nutrient dense things to eat. So, kale's fairly popular, spinach as well, but you can also have things like Swiss chard or mizuna, different types of salad, lettuces even, and they have a lot of fiber vitamins, nutrients, antioxidants, great for overall health and help reduce the risk of chronic diseases, which that's what we all want, right?
That is true.
Now, whole grains. Whole grains basically should be chosen over refined grains, which are then broken down into like things like pastas and breads as much as possible. So having things like oatmeal, amaranth, quinoa, those actually provide more fiber, vitamins, and minerals than your breads, your pastas, the processed whole grains, essentially cereals, for example. Proteins, we talk about proteins a lot because they're really important for exercise, like in terms of muscle repair, for building things. And then also that's important for immune function and hormone production, which most people don't realize. So things like, you can have animal-based sources or plant-based sources, lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, legumes, nuts, seeds. Those are some of the main ones that protein sources for people. And in the next one, it's kind of the same deal. You can have dairy products, which are a great source of calcium. You can also, if you're lactose intolerant, or maybe you just don't like dairy as much, you can have different plant-based milks or things like the plant-based cheeses out there now made with like almond milk, cashew milk, that kind of stuff.
Oh.
Of course, we don't want to leave healthy fats behind either. And so healthy fat sources include things like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, and this is good for brain health, hormone production, and for absorbing fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K. You need fat in order for those to be absorbed. Now, we've talked about things you should include, but I'm going to say we should not include so much of these things. So added sugars, these are things added to, as the name suggests, the cereal that you're eating or the tomato sauce or whatever the case is, ice creams, etc. So while it's, okay to have some fats that are, that are not saturated fats in particular, and some added sugar in small amounts, it's really important to avoid having too many of these because they can contribute to weight gain and also increase the risk for heart disease. So just something to be aware of. And of course, we've talked about water a decent amount and staying properly hydrated. So that's another element to a balanced diet that a lot of times we're not really thinking about. And water is essential for our digestion, nutrient absorption, detoxification, and regulating our body temperature too. Now, just like we talked about with exercise, like how do we incorporate this a little bit more?
Right.
One of the things is to plan your meals, maybe try some meal prep, or at least just thinking like, what am I going to eat for breakfast tomorrow? And how can I include blueberries? Or can I put some spinach with my turkey sandwich at lunch to get a little bit of extra greens? You can also eat more mindfully because if you are paying attention to your hunger and satiety cues, you're generally not going to overeat too much. And again, that's part of this whole balanced diet. You don't want to take in more calories than your body needs. Another thing is just remember to be flexible and give yourself some grace. There are going to be times when you want ice cream, cakes, pastries, etc. But it's important to enjoy those times, but keep 80 or 90% of your diet to be like really good. And again, balanced. And then of course, we want to remember balanced diet goes with balancing exercises and exercise in general. So keep those things going. And really by having both of these things, you can help your body get the nutrients it needs while keeping it in a balanced, fit state. Any questions, Ken?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
What are potatoes considered? Is it a starch or is it a fibrous? I mean, is it more a vegetable or is it more of a starch? Potato, just regular potatoes?
Vegetable with starch, but I mean, are you asking more from because people will be saying, "Oh, I need to avoid all carbohydrates"? That's the typical thing. Yeah. What I would tell people to focus on instead is like keep the potatoes, eat the skin because that's going to give you a little bit more fiber and potassium, things like that. But maybe eat that instead of pasta or bread and those kinds of things. It's like just a switch, really. Don't say no.
Okay.
It's healthier.
Yeah. And the
What's
second
another?
question I have is how much, is there a certain number of grams of added sugar that you should never go over? Or is that different for each person or is there how does that work?
Well, I go with the World Health Organization, which has said that we should be having less than 25 grams of added sugar, and they are including now fruit sugar. But if you consider how much a typical American might get in terms of sugar, I'm just happy if we get close to 25 grams of added sugar because it can be pretty high. I've seen like 117 terms of grams
snap.
per day. Yeah. Even like on a healthy vegan diet, but with a couple of like drinks after work or, you know, a vegan brownie. Just, yeah, it's easy for those things to sneak in because we're usually not paying too much attention to them. And, you know, we've been trained from the 90s where it's like, oh, low fat. Well, then
Right.
just all eating more sugar.
Right. Yeah. That's that took the place of the fat, which is not good, which is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Wonderful.
other questions?
No, you got them. Thank you.
Well, if any of you have questions, please leave them in the comments and also feel free to like and subscribe. And we always like to end by sharing just one little tidbit. Mine is try to make this personalized and also take one tiny step in the right direction. And this will
And my
complement what Ken will say.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Consistency is the key. You know, if you do balance training 2 to 3 times a week, or you know, at least 2 to 3 times a week, you'll see benefit, you know, weeks, months, years down the road. So just be consistent.
I totally agree. Just be a little bit consistent and choose 1 or 2 little things to start with, and you will be way better off in 5 or 10 years than you were yesterday.
True.
Doesn't have to be a race, and you don't have to do everything all at once. And we will be back next week. So feel free to follow us in the meantime, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.